Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to another Burlingame. It's a small town podcast sponsored by the Burlingame Historical Society. This is Mark Lucchese, also known as Mark at the Mic. And my guest today is 100% local. He grew up at the family home in San Mateo Park, attended St. Catherines Catholic Elementary School, went on to Serra High School in San Mateo, College of San Mateo, and graduated from the University of San Francisco with a degree in accounting. But we're not talking numbers today, only fond memories of growing up in Burlingame. My guest today, and better yet, my good friend, Mark Johnson, known as MJ to many. Mark Johnson, thank you for being on the show today.
It's fun to be here with you, Mark. You are the best, the most positive spirit, big smile. Everybody loves Mark Lucchese.
Oh, Johnson, you had that you rehearsed very well. I love it. Let's see, you just got back from Hawaii about, a week ago or so, or what?
Yeah, I was just there for about 4 nights in Honolulu, just for a little getaway. And one thing I've just learned is going away to just different places, short little trips once in a while, let you recharge, just get you away. It's great. About a few months ago, I was up in Bodega Bay for a couple nights. There's nothing to do there, and that is the successful part of a getaway.
It's a refresher.
Very.
So I have to ask you, Mark, how often do you get over to Honolulu or to Hawaii?
I hadn't been over there for probably 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. It's a great feeling.
I love it. The weather, it just drops you down a few degrees when you get there. It's beautiful.
The blood pressure drops everything.
Completely.
So I have to ask you, though, and I have a feeling, but I'll let you disclose it. Are you one of those guys that when you're over there, you're checking your emails, or your business emails and your texts and all that kind of stuff that helps you relax a little bit? I know it's work, but I have a feeling you're checking business emails.
You're 100% right. That's the way the world is, and that's the way when I have my own little business, my own little real estate business, so you have to constantly be on. But by doing that, it allows you to go to different places, and you can communicate with people, and instead of just being away and gone, and they don't hear from you. So yes, but it's easy, and you make it work, and it makes it very relaxing, too.
Absolutely. Mark, I always sort of have this respect for those guys that can turn everything off, because I couldn't. Even though I had a manager at the store while I was away, I was always texting or watching the emails because so much goes on. But anyway, enough of that. As I mentioned in the intro, you're a lifelong resident of, we'll call it Burlingame, San Mateo Park, because Barrio LA is the only thing that splits it, right?
Because where we grew up, I'm one of 5 children, and we grew up on Hillcrest Road up in San Mateo Park, right on the edge between Edgewood and West Poplar, and it was in St. Catharines Parish. My guess is it was probably right on the edge of St. Catharines Parish. Yeah. So back then, we were all brought up Catholic. We all went to St. Catharines, and so that was our parish. So everything was focused in Burlingame, downtown Burlingame, because that's where St. Catharines is.
Yeah. I know you were brought up Catholic because you have 5 kids in the family, man. 2 older brothers and 2 younger sisters?
I'm the deprived middle child.
That's awesome. Okay. I'm just wondering, as you're cruising around the neighborhood, do you ever go see the old house?
Yes. I drive by it usually once or twice a week, just by the nature of being in real estate.
Yeah.
I drive around, and I'm always curious. I still have friends up in the general area. I've been in the house maybe about 7-8 years ago. The people that bought it, we sold it in 2008 after my mom passed away. My dad moved out to Sacramento, where 3 of my siblings live, and so they did a great job remodeling it. They're the nicest people. They had previously lived in San Mateo Park in a larger home, so they get the park, they understand the park, they like the charming character, great people, and it was nice to see it.
Yeah, your parents were there for 50 years, huh?
50 years. They bought it in 1956, sold it in 2008.
Yeah, and I'm hesitant to ask this question, but you said your dad moved up to Sacramento. Is he still with us?
No, he passed away about 10 years ago. Okay. He was almost 94, so he had a good long run.
He had a great run.
Yes.
Good for him. All right, so with your brothers and your sisters, you grew up there in the park. Where did you guys like go when you got out, on the weekends or something? Was there a place that you would hang out, or was there a certain park that you played at or anything like that?
So a lot of the times you would just go to friend's house. You would hang out at friend's house, and that could be anywhere. A lot of the time you would also go down to Burlingame Avenue or go to Washington Park, or in San Mateo Park they had, a number of islands in the park.
Yeah, the islands, right.
And there was one huge one right at Warren and Edgewood, right across the street from the Dolem's house, and there was a lot more vegetation there, and we would build a fort in there and have games. It was just the best. But we'd also once in a while go to the old Pershing School before they tore it down, which is now Pershing Park.
Is it a park? Yeah.
But they had lawns, and so you could play ball on the lawns and stuff. So that's kind of it.
Do you remember any of the old neighbors? Can you remember any of the names?
All of them.
Name a few for us.
So right next door we had the Howards. I think he was a descendant of the founding Howard family from the area, Bill and Happy Howard, and they had 2 daughters. And then next to them was Bob Lindstrom. Lindstrom Plumbing. He was a contractor.
Yes,
nicest
I knew
guy.
his son very well. Went to Burlingame High.
And his son Jeff and Sally grew up there, and Jeff is a great local building contractor.
Yes,
he does a fantastic job. I remember his sister Sally would babysit us, and for I think it was a high school gift, the parents gave her a powder blue, I think 1965 Mustang convertible with a white top. And so we would volunteer. We'd go down and volunteer and say, can we wash the car for you? And we were probably, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
They were great people. Across the street, we had the Oberschmidts, we had the Longs, the Donahues, Bill and Sue Garrett and their family. Next door to us, we had Miss Pogue, who taught at San Mateo High School. The Dykmans lived a block away. They were good. One of them was a friend of mine. One was a friend of my old brother Scott. The Dialquazes, the Dolams. There's many people.
The Dialquazes, I remember that family from St. Catharines.
Great people. Yeah.
I do remember that. Yep.
And then the Maroney family down at 721 Edgewood.
That would be Sheila Maroney, Mark Maroney.
Yes.
That
in fact,
big
Mark
family
was the youngest of, I think they had 7 kids, give or take. And Mark and I were good friends growing up. So
great neighborhood.
Great neighborhood.
Yeah.
Great people.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm just wondering, because you were the middle child, 2 older brothers, Steve and Scott, and your 2 younger sisters,
Marianne and Patty.
Yep. Did you hang out with your brothers, or did you have your own group of friends?
I had my own group of friends. Sometimes I would hang out with my older brother Scott's friends, because sometimes they would have a younger brother that was my age, and there might be a little crossover. But let's face it, they didn't want to hang out with me because there was a 4-year age difference between myself and my older brother. They didn't want your punk brother hanging out with you.
Correct.
And so, so pretty much my own friends, and sometimes there'd be crossover, or they would say, all right, well, we have to give you a ride to school, so just hurry up and get going, and don't look at us at all during the school.
Yeah.
Because I was a freshman at Serra when he was a senior at Serra.
Well, that was kind of good, though. It's always good to have a little protection in case you need it.
Yes.
All right, so I think I mentioned that we all attended St. Catharines School, including my brother, Paul, who's sort of in between us. Well, he went to school with one of your brothers.
Yeah, so Paul Lucchese was in my brother Steve's class.
That's right, yes. All right, so when you were there, who was the pastor at the time?
Monsignor Thomas Cummins.
So he'd been there for quite a while.
He was there a long time.
Yeah, and do you remember anything particular about him?
Well, I mean, back then, I was so young, you looked at him as being an older person. He didn't, have a outgoing smile, but I guess you don't need to or want to. I think he ran things very efficiently.
Yeah.
He was a nice guy, but, you kind of looked at him saying, oh, there's the Monsignor Cummins in charge of everything.
You sort of stood back a little bit.
You stood back and stuff. So
I think he spent a lot of time at the Burlingame Country Club.
He liked playing golf at the Burlingame Club.
And back in those days, I think parishioners, maybe they still do, I don't know, would buy cars for some of the priests. I think he always had a car purchased for him. So he was in a pretty good situation, huh? Okay. What about the principal of the school? You remember who that was?
So the principal of the school, so I've got to give credit to my brother Steve.
He helped you out on this one?
And then also good friend Steve Dolem, who grew up 2 blocks away. The Dolems are great people. So I talked to them and emailed them, and I got messages. And so back then, the principal was Sister, where was it?
It wasn't Sister Mary Ruth, was it?
No, it was Sister Rose Marie DeBella. I'm looking at my class picture from 1969. Sister Rose Marie DeBella was the principal.
The Italian nuns weren't starting to come over at that time, were they?
We still had the Sisters of Mercy. We had 2 lay teachers. My brother Steve remembers another one, but when I was there, when I graduated in 69, I think we had 2 lay teachers, so the Sisters of Mercy were hanging in there, but still, it was difficult.
Who were the 2 lay teachers?
So one was Miss Jean.
3rd grade.
3rd grade, exactly. And then we had, in 5th grade, a Mrs. Poncetta.
Oh, okay. I had Mrs. Heck in 5th grade. You know, it's funny. Miss Jean must have been there for, I don't know, 100 years, maybe?
Yes,
it
exactly.
Seems like.
Yes.
I've always wondered, was she really Miss Jean, or it just sounded good for 3rd graders, Miss Jean? Maybe she was married or whatever, huh? But I've often wondered whatever happened to her. Obviously, she's long gone, but it'd be nice to know if she got a worthy retirement and all that kind of thing, because she was a sweetheart.
She was, and she was an institution there. Many decades.
Everybody had Miss Jean at one time or another. Pretty funny. So, okay. Let me see here. Let me get to my questions. Back to my questions. Okay, one thing that always sort of resonated with me at St. Catharines, besides the sports program and everything else, was traffic patrol. Okay, I don't even know if traffic patrol exists anymore. I think it's all either volunteers or crossing guards, right? Were you ever on the traffic patrol?
Big yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
My brother's where I talked to Steve last night. He definitely was, and it was a privilege to be on the traffic patrol, mainly because you got free passes to the Fox Theater.
Yes.
So you would go and see double features.
Yeah, on a Saturday.
On a Saturday, exactly.
So great stuff.
So so you had you wore a
the little belt that went around you.
The little belt that went around you,
badge.
and then you had a stop sign, and you had, I think, 2 of you on a four-corner intersection.
Yeah.
And so, yes, that was a big deal.
The badge was cool because they had patrolman.
Yes.
And then you could move to sergeant, lieutenant, and captain.
And they were different colors, yes.
And you could get out of class about 15 minutes early, right, to get downstairs. But what's even better, well, I shouldn't say better, but girls weren't allowed to be patrolmen back then. So you're kind of like a Studley type guy, right?
Yes.
But how things have changed, right?
Yes.
It's funny. So, and even back then, they weren't even altar girls, I guess, which now you can have an altar girl, which is great.
It's
about
is
time.
Yes.
It's about time.
Long time due.
So while you're a traffic boy, I call it traffic boy, traffic patrolman, do you remember the parade that we used to get? We'd start at Washington Park and march all the way down Burlingame Avenue.
And it was also a chance for the public schools and the private schools to mix
it up a little bit.
Yes.
Right. I think even, Our Lady of Angels was part of it too. And there must have been, I don't know, half a dozen elementary public schools involved in that. That was a lot of fun. It was a great time. Were you an altar boy?
I definitely was. That was a privilege to be an altar boy.
That does not surprise me. I love it, Mark Johnson.
Because one thing is it potentially also generated some revenue, maybe, because sometimes when you do funerals and sometimes when you do weddings, you may or may not get a little tip. The other, which is probably more important, is it generally, for funerals, it got you out of class.
Yes, that's right, because they were on Fridays.
Weekends. Yes, exactly. So you took it because it was a good thing to do, but it also got you out of class.
Mark Johnson being very candid with us today.
And I remember when I was first going to do my first Mass as an altar boy, I was so scared that I went to the previous Mass, and at St. Catharines, they have a chapel over as you're walking up towards the front of the church over on the left side. I sat in the previous Mass, sitting in the chapel, just looking at how the altar boys are doing because I was so nervous.
Good for you.
So, anyway.
Hey, good for you. Nothing like stage fright, right? Boy, and I got to tell you something. the priests were getting a little envelope. Now, whether they shared it with you or not, I can't,
Don't know. Once in a while, after a funeral, if you had to go up to the cemetery, they might take you out for a donut.
Okay. The big spenders. I love it. Oh, my gosh.
I do remember as a kid, and I was probably 8 years old when JFK was assassinated. The one thing I remember about that, there are events in life, where were you and you remember? I remember walking from the school building along the sidewalk into church, and we all sat in church, and I think it must have been prayers and stuff, but that's one of those, you remember that forever, where you were.
You know what? You've now given me a question to ask an ongoing podcast. That is a great question. Where were you when JFK was assassinated?
I will never, ever forget that.
Yeah, I was a sophomore at Serra, but that's a great question or a great thing to bring up. All right, Mark, we're going to... Oh, wait a minute. I just want to know, and for our listeners, and this is nostalgia, what year did you graduate from St. Catharines?
69.
Okay. Do you still see any of your old classmates around town, or is anybody still living around here?
Sometimes. Bill Weeks lives over in Pacifica. He's married to Janice Thoreau.
Yeah.
And so I see Bill once in a while. Steve Dolan lives out in the Sacramento area, and once in a while. Was Sheila in your class? So Sheila was older.
We're talking Sheila Maroney.
Sheila Santero. Yeah.
Right.
She's amazing. She's wonderful. So is her husband Ron. Village Host Pizza.
Right.
So she was, I think, one of my older brother's class. I think she's 3 or 4 years older than me. Okay.
So do you see any of the girls around? Obviously they're grown women now and moms and all that, but...
I see. So we had the McCrae twins, Kathy and Terry.
Yeah.
So one of them passed away, and the other lives in the area. So I randomly see people from time to time, but not too often because a lot of people have moved away. Yeah, and I take it there's no reunions. We had a big reunion about 10 years ago. It was lots of fun. Had it in the auditorium. Great. This is before they had the new rec
gym?
center, the gym that we built. Right. So we had a great time, good turnout, and it was a lot of fun.
Good. All right, let's talk about something we're going to have a little fun with, okay?
Oh, before I forget about it, so at St. Catharines, one of the great things we had in high school was Teen Club. And I don't know if you remember Teen Club, Mark, from St. Catharines?
Mark, we didn't have Teen Club when I was there.
So they must
have come after me.
They must have come after. So when I was there, it was already full going, and it was the best thing in the world. We met Sundays, early evening, probably 6 o'clock for a couple hours in the auditorium in St. Catharines, and you had various parents donate their time to kind of be supervising us. And then we also had discussion groups where during the week you'd meet with people. And I know there were predecessor couples, the McCuskers, but you also had the Fanukis, Bob and Carol Fanuki. You had the Spikers, you had the Trips, you had Ted and Duffy Shelley. You had some amazing, amazing people, Del Chiaros, that took time from their life and their families to help these teenagers do things that are interesting.
Great stuff. So was there a priest that was the moderator?
No.
No priest?
No priest.
Just the teen club?
Just the teen club.
Supervised by parents?
By parents. And these were typically parents not of teenagers in the teen club, because that would never work. Right. And so these were parents
volunteering their time.
And I remember one time we were there and we go, let's do a canned food drive. And then we're thinking, all right, what do we do? So there were four cars of us. So we said, let's go to Bing Crosby's house. So we drove up to Bing Crosby's house in Hillsborough.
Is that the top of Easton?
Top of Easton on Armsby. Mm-hmm. Yes. And so we drove up, 4 cars, went up to his motor court, knocked on the front door. He answered the door because I think he went to St. Catharines from time to time. Yeah. And he definitely knew Burlingame. Mm-hmm. And he was the nicest guy. He said, I'm happy to help out. Come on in. Why don't you stay here? Let me go in the kitchen, see what I can find. He came out with 2 or 3 or 4 bags full of groceries, happy to help out, just the nicest guy in the world.
Isn't that terrific? Yeah. That's a good story. That is a real good story.
And then remember our parish picnics that we had at Blackberry. Was it Blackberry Farm?
Well, I remember 2 different places. Adobe Creek wherever that is. Maybe that's where Adobe is now. I have no idea. I was down in Saratoga, I think, down that area. And then I remember Blackberry Farm well. And I guess all of that stuff's kind of gone away, huh?
Yeah, I think I looked up Blackberry Farm is still there in Cupertino. In what format, I don't know. I've been there forever, but we had great times. There'd be a cake booth where for a dime or quarter you won a cake. And we always sat with the D'Alquazes. We had just the best time at the parish picnics.
I was always amazed as I look back even now at the turnout we had. It was a great turnout.
Yeah.
It was always on a Sunday. Was it Sunday or Saturday? I forget. It must have been Saturday because you'd have to go to Mass on Sunday.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Oh, the other thing about Teen Club is...
Remembering some good stuff?
No. The other thing about Teen Club, we would always host a dance, usually once a month, in the auditorium at St. Catharines. Once in a while, we used the rec center in Burlingame. But I remember twice we had Tower of Power.
So, no kidding.
So this clearly had to be when they were first starting out. Because we would typically pay maybe $200 to maybe $400 for a band for a night. It just depended how much we could charge. We had this financial model. But I know we had Tower of Power once and I think twice. And Teen Club dances at St. Catharines were the thing to go to on the peninsula.
Were they open to anybody on the peninsula?
Open to everybody on the peninsula. And people look forward to them. It was the hot spot, the place to go.
You know what's funny? I could just imagine the nuns upstairs in the balcony kind of peeking down on everybody, right? Kind of funny.
or complaining about the noise.
Yeah, complaining they can't get to sleep, right? Good memories, Mark. Okay, going to test your memory some more. Let's take a walk down Burlingame Avenue and Howard Avenue and Primrose and talk about some highlights, okay? But I'm going to start over by the train station at the donut shop. It's the Royal Donut Shop today. I remember it as being Hasty Tasty, and then I remember it being Flings.
Yes.
And now it's the donut shop. Was there something I missed in there? I thought it was there was something else, but I can't remember.
It could have been. I definitely remember Hasty Tasty, and that's when French fries back then were those crinkle cut fries.
Yeah, right.
You didn't have the thin fries like McDonald's.
Those crinkle cuts were
good. The crinkle cuts were the best. And I remember at St. Catharines, when we would go to school, you'd always bring a bag lunch, and it would just be, all right, well, it'd be awful meat. It would be something you'd make at home, and with 5 kids at home, it's just, God love my mother for making whatever she could. But I remember J.J. Kiernan, nice guy, grew up in Hillsborough. Once in a while, his mother would go to Hasty Tasty and bring him burger shake and fries, and everyone was just
mesmerized.
Oh my God! Yes. It was great times. But but it was Hasty Tasty. Then it was Flings, and there were a number of Flings. I don't know. It was Flings number
5 or 6
whatever
or 7.
It was.
Yeah, right. There was one in San Bruno that I remember as well. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to walk down Burlingame Avenue. I'm going to stop at the corner of Burlingame Avenue and Primrose, and there was 4 really nice establishments, long-term establishments. There was Levy Brothers.
Yes.
Where we may have bought our salt and pepper clothes. We either bought them there at Simpsons. I can't remember.
Definitely. Yeah. Simpsons, definitely used. Simpsons was on Burlingame Avenue, but Levy Brothers, you went there for everything.
Everything.
Salt and pepper corduroy pants. You had to wear a white shirt and black shoes at St. Catharines. That was your uniform.
And they had it downstairs, whatever that was down there. Okay. And then across the street, across Primrose, was Toll's Cafe for many years. Right. Great spot. And across from Toll's was the smoke shop, the famous smoke shop.
Smoke shop was the best. So the smoke shop is where that Warby Parker is, the ice store now.
Right.
And back then, the smoke shop sold cigarettes, cigars, magazines, newspapers, a varied group of magazines.
Oh, the girly magazines.
And they had a great candy and all those other things. So, of course, my parents say, Mark, and you're never to go in there. Don't go in there. And, of course, if your parents say that,
you're going.
Got
to see why can't
I
go in
there all the time to buy candy.
That's great. So I mentioned Toll's, right? What's there now?
It's a boba tea store.
That's right. It's not a bento box.
No.
No, you're right. It's Boba.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
good.
could have been Bento last year.
And what's at Levy Brothers now?
Levy Brothers is a multi-tenant space.
Okay.
So there's that a juice place on the ground floor. There's a little sandwich shop along the Primrose side. Upstairs, there's an art gallery.
That would be CJ's sandwich shop.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a salon upstairs. Downstairs, I haven't been there for a while, but it's multi-tenant.
All right. And then across the street from Levy Brothers, on the corner, was a pharmacy, Bennett's Pharmacy.
Yes, yes.
What's that today?
That is it looks like a designer
Art studio or something?
furniture store.
Okay.
Yes.
It's rather new.
It used to be Baby Gap for
Right.
quite a while,
Uh-huh.
but it's
So this place is rather new, I think.
yes, in the last few years.
Great.
Yes,
You did
yes.
a little research. I like this because I've got more for you. Okay? So now we're going to walk down Burlingame Avenue towards the train station. Okay? And on the left-hand side, let's see, what did we have over there? We had, we had Simpson's men's clothing. We had Smith & Heller's shoes. Wallace's Sporting Goods. Do you remember Wallace's?
Definitely.
Yeah, okay. Because we also had Ricky's, but I think Ricky's was on the other side of the street, but Ricky's turned into somebody's bicycle, Summit Bicycle or something like that.
And then the other sporting good place that you would go to would be, it was on California Drive near Oak Grove, and I can't remember the name
Edens.
of it. Edens, thank
Yeah.
you, because Ellingson's was in downtown San Mateo.
That's right.
It was Edens. So
was
between Edens and Wallace's, you called the owner was Wally,
Yeah.
and Ricky's, those were your go-to.
You had places to go to, man. It was no longer, there was no Big Fives then or Dick's or anything
you
like
would rent
that.
skis there. You
Yeah,
would
everything
buy
you wanted.
everything athletic there.
Right. So can you tell me, what do you think is it, and I don't know for sure, I have a feeling, what's it where Smith & Heller and Simpson's is right now? Is that Toppers?
So Toppers is where Gap was, and I think what was there was Woolworth 5 and Dime.
Ah, right.
And when you walked into Woolworth's on the left side, they had that food counter.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of the general where Woolworth was.
You're right, because I had written down Montgomery Ward, but Montgomery Ward was more towards where Sam Maloof's is, around that area.
So Montgomery Ward's is on one block further west, and that is that tall brick building on the north side.
Yeah.
That was Montgomery Ward's.
That was Montgomery.
Yes.
Wowee.
And then the old Robert Gates was next to that.
Yeah. Good. You're on your game today, Mr. Johnson. All right, here's a few more for you. We had a few delis in town. There was David's on the Avenue. There was Danello's on Lorton. Do you remember Danello's at all?
Yes.
They had really fresh stuff, like turkey out of the oven, roast beef out of the oven. They were a great spot. And Brothers Deli came from San Mateo and landed on Howard Avenue.
Yes.
Howard and Primrose. Do you remember those?
Yes, I remember because Brothers was in downtown San Mateo forever.
Forever.
And it came in later in life because where Brothers wound up originally, that was a blue chip
That's correct.
stamp
That was
redemption
the Blue
center.
Chip Redemption Center. Can you imagine that?
Because back in the day, you would go to a gas station or a supermarket, and they would give out either S&H green stamps or blue chip stamps, and you would fill up the books, and you would go to these redemptions and buy a toaster or whatever you had.
That is classic memory, man. That's great
and then
stuff.
Blue Chip Redemption Center eventually became Shakey's Pizza Parlor.
It did. It was the first and only Shakey's I think we had in the area.
But what we can't forget is across the street from that, where Citibank is now, that was probably the best supermarket in the whole Bay Area, West Coast. It was Jim's Super, run and owned by the wonderful Lucchese family. And I remember going there. Our family would go to Jim's Super. All the time, and they were the nicest people. And what they would always do is they would give little mini Tootsie Rolls and Bazooka bubble gum, and they would throw it in the grocery bag for the kids. They knew how to get the kids to say, "Mom and Dad, we want to go back to Jim's Super." And if I had to go in and buy something for my parents, some milk or whatever it was, then, and of course I didn't have any money, I would sign the receipt, or they would tape the receipt to the cash register, write Johnson on it, and then when my parents came in, it would be taken care of. That's the character of downtown Burlingame, of Jim Super, the Lucchese family, back in the 60s.
Boy, you're going to make me cry right now.
No, it makes us cry. It
We
makes
might
us
have
proud.
to break away, folks. Okay, while I wipe these tears away. That was
It was
great.
the best.
Mark Johnson, thank you for that.
And your mother's name was Bruno?
Paul. My mother's name was Bruna.
Bruna, that's
and
it.
Roy was my dad.
Yes,
right.
yes.
And that's great stuff.
And then Arthur's Toy Town was next
right
to that.
next down to
the
us.
best toy store.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Talbot's in downtown San Mateo,
Yeah.
but Arthur's, that's where you would just go all the time. I remember buying models there, whatever toys. The parents would go there before Christmas.
And it had some sporting goods in there,
it was
too.
the best.
Yeah,
Arthur's
it was a great
Toy Town.
spot.
Yeah.
Great place. Good job so far. I've got more for you. Okay, I've got more for you. There was, back to Burlingame Avenue for a minute. Oh, wait a minute. Let's go back on Howard Avenue. Next to Jim Super, going, I guess, east. What was next door to us? Do you remember?
It was Primrose Lanes.
We had a bowling alley here in Burlingame,
which is now parking lot W.
Yes.
But it was a tall, big building, and it had was there a bar, restaurant in front?
Sort of, yes. You would walk in, kind of a little thing, a bar, restaurant. The pool tables and everything were on the right-hand side, sort of separated. And there was pinball machines, and that was very, you're not allowed to go in there. Okay.
Yes.
Of course, boom, there you go, right?
And that was Primrose Lanes. That was a big happening place.
Burlingame had a bowling alley.
Yes.
Great stuff.
Yes.
All right, so let's get back down to Burlingame Avenue for a minute, because I want to make sure I hit these other places. Charles Stationery.
Yes.
Okay.
Big time.
Right? Miller Drugs on the corner where the luggage center is. Is that correct?
Miller Drug was there. Norm Henders, who was in Burlingame Rotary for a long time, was a pharmacist there. I don't think he owned it, but Miller Drug was there forever, right across from where Starbucks is now.
Yeah. Well, good job, dude. Where was Nelson's Coffee Shop?
I think Nelson's Coffee Shop was on the south side of Burlingame Avenue, between Lorton and California Drive. I think that block there.
Okay. I can't place it. I remember going there, but I can't place it anymore.
I believe so.
Yeah. All right. So now we're going to walk up Burlingame Avenue.
But we can't forget about where the bike shop was.
Right.
Do you remember the bike shop?
That was Ricky's, and they converted it to Summit, or they converted it to the Schwinn bicycle. Then it went to Summit, I think.
Yes, and that's where... is it Five Little Monkeys, the toy store? I love that store. But that's where I remember the bike shop. When you wanted a bike or any repair, that was the best place in the world.
That was the go-to place.
And had the side door on the alley.
Yeah. Good job. All right. Now, walking up from that bike shop, heading towards, El Camino, quite a ways. You would come across Jurgensen's Market. Remember Jurgensen's?
Jurgensen's, that was high. I mean, couldn't go in there because that was high end.
Yes,
it was
Molly Stone's before Molly Stone's got here.
Exactly. And so if you wanted sandwiches, those were expensive, good sandwiches.
Right.
So of course I never ate there. Do you remember Continental Deli?
I do.
And I think the owner, his name was Egon. I don't know why.
Remember that.
Yeah, but I think they were on the Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was a great deli.
So go ahead. The one thing I remember about Jurgensen's was that they didn't have any prices in the meat case or the poultry case, and somebody said, "How come you have any prices?" Well, if you have to ask, then maybe you shouldn't shop here. Okay. Now I don't know if that's Burlingame folklore or not, but I have to always bring that up when I hear it. So, also next to them or close to them was a place called Burlingame Meat, Poultry, and Produce.
Yes, they were there forever.
Yeah,
forever.
Yeah. I'm not sure what's even there now. I can't place a lot of just restaurants, I guess, have moved in.
And there's a lot of small retail. There's a Sunglass Hut, and then there's Toppers used to be there, but then Toppers moved across the street. There's different little places that it's hard to keep up on.
Yes, it is. I remember Wolmer's Records.
Oh, Wolmer's. That was the best place. Wolmer's Records, and they also sold radios and transistor radios. And the first time I ever bought a transistor radio, it was at Wolmer's, and it was a Zenith, things that you remember as a kid.
Gosh,
and it was an AM, FM, and I was so excited, but I didn't have all the money. I saved money doing gardening and paper route.
Yeah.
And so they said, well, we can do a layaway plan. I said, what's involved? And so they said, well, pay so much, and then when you pay it off, then you can get it. I was so excited. I think I paid it off in a week.
Yeah.
Because I wanted my Magnavox transistor radio.
Transistor radio.
It was and that was at Wolmer's.
Good for you. Okay, and then Wolmer's was on the left-hand side. Were they by the Fox Theater? Were they close to that or something?
No, they were on the south side of Burlingame Avenue between Park Road and Primrose.
Okay. And then nestled in there someplace, I think it was right after Toll's, was a bookstore, but I can't remember the name of the bookstore. It was just a tiny little spot.
I can't.
And it wasn't a chain like Books Inc. or,
No.
those weren't even around yet. It was a, sole proprietor type of place, but I can't remember.
And where the Apple store is, that used to be a bank.
Was the Bank of America?
Bank of America, I think, because I remember as a kid at St. Catharines, they encouraged you to open up a little account. So I had an account that had maybe $1.25 in it, but the important thing was saving, and I thought it was Bank of America. You're right, but that was a bank building for a long, long time, where Apple is now.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, did we miss anything? What's on? You have anything for me on your notes, Sarah?
I would say, across from the school at St. Catharines on Park Road right now at 110 Park Road, that's a tall condominium building, white condominium building. I remember as a kid, back in the day, they used to have around Halloween haunted houses, and what a charity group would do for a house that was going to be demolished, they would turn into an open house, charge admission. It was always fun. So on that site, and the palm tree is still there, there used to be a big old wooden house, and it was turned into, and the developer was going to tear it down, and they turned into a haunted house, and they eventually tore it down and built the condominiums, and that's at 110 Park Road.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I remember that being a big old house that the developer bought, and before they tore it down, it was a charity haunted house.
Yeah, and some folks might remember living next door to that home was the Toomey family, Alice and Jerry and Tim, and boy, I can't remember the brother's name, but the Toomeys were very popular here in Burlingame.
And now you remember over on the east side of 101, the Hyatt House.
Definitely.
Because where the Hyatt Regency is now, that used to be the Hyatt House that had a great coffee shop. There was a waitress by the name of Marcy that she was wonderful, but everyone gave her a bad time. And that's back when they did runners. Punk kids would do runners where you would have a meal and then you would
take off.
Then you would take off without paying. Bad, not nice. And then that's when Danny Morona was a big-time comedian.
He was a
staple there. And that's where Hyatt Corporation's corporate headquarters were for a long time before they moved back to Chicago.
Yeah, I remember them being HQ out here. And I also remember the big sign, Danny Morona.
Yes.
This weekend, but he was like always a headliner there.
And then the old Hyatt Cinema out along Old Bayshore. Remember when the Keyston family filled in along the bay and were Key Junes and the Hyatt Cinema? Jeez. They developed all that, the Keyston family. They're really, really nice people. And that cinema they had, it was a huge screen. It was a wide screen. It was huge. Eventually it was cut down into smaller screens.
Oh, they made 3 out of 1, I think, didn't they?
Yes. But,
pretty cool.
But that was a great place. Now, I have one question. I think Baskin-Robbins on Burlingame Avenue has to be the longest standing tenant on Burlingame Avenue. Maybe they own the store, maybe they don't, or they have the best lease in the world. But I think Baskin-Robbins has been there the longest of anybody.
I don't think so. I think on the Avenue, it's Morning Glory.
Really?
The girls just celebrated 50 years last year. But Baskin-Robbins, and I thank you for bringing that up. I'll ask the president of our society, Jennifer Pfaff, how long Baskin's has been around. Yeah, Baskin-Robbins has been around. I mean, not Baskin. The girls, Paulette and Susan, her sister, founded, Morning Glory. Right after high school, basically. So they just celebrated 50 years.
And you remember the Bit of England.
Oh, for sure.
Where Stella is now, that's Bit of England.
Yeah.
That was the place to go.
Yeah.
The fireplace, hang out, everyone go there for drinks. Oh, it's 4:30, it's cocktail time.
Yeah,
let's go there.
When you could have a couple of
Bit
drinks.
of England, and then conversely, where Sephora is now, that's where La Piñata used to be. That was the place to go to back in the 70s and 80s before they had a big fire. I remember that was
well.
A happening bar.
That was a really a down point or sadness when they had to leave. I guess they got their rent jacked.
No, there was a fire.
But didn't they? Oh, they didn't come back after the fire?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
And that's when it was the Burlingame Hotel.
Yeah, boy.
No, that was amazing. And then let's see, Burlingame Garden Center that was owned by the Chapellonis forever, just down from the backside of Molly Stone's. That's now where my office is.
Yeah.
That was a great place. They're a wonderful family.
And Fidelity is next door, before or after?
Fidelity is to the left. Fidelity Building, Fidelity Investments is to the east.
And what was there, a home? Homes?
I'm not sure where Fidelity, because Fidelity is a whole new building where my office is. They kept the old Burlingame Garden Center building, and then they added on a contemporary wing. They did a beautiful, beautiful job. I still miss Round Table Pizza on the Avenue. Round Table Pizza was there for decades.
You're not listening to that, Sheila and Ron from Village Host, okay? We're going to
that was so
delete
close.
that.
But Village Host Pizza going to Broadway is the best.
You know, what's funny, across the street from where you're currently working, we won't mention names, was Lee Mendelson Productions, where I think the...
Charles Schultz, Snoopy.
Yes, right.
Yes.
Yeah, it was right in there.
Yes. And then where Stax is now, that used to be a car dealership.
It was.
A long time ago. And then I think it might have been a pizza parlor at one time.
And then where the Il Fornaio is, that was the feed store for many years.
That was the best. That was called Dean's Feed Store.
Yeah,
and
Dean's.
I remember getting food for our pets, getting goldfish. It was a great place. It was Dean's Feed Store.
This is great.
And then remember when Dean's left, then it became, I think in the 90s, a really active, crazy bar. They had a very active bar scene there, and it wasn't there a long time.
God, I can't remember that.
I can't remember the name of it. And then we can't forget Nathan's Restaurant.
He's still around.
He's still around. Great guy.
Yeah.
Nathan in Maryland.
Yeah.
And he had, back in the 70s and 80s, he brought really fine dining to downtown Burlingame.
He had two restaurants for, I don't know if he had them at the same time, but he had one on the corner, didn't he?
One at the corner where Flights is now, where it used to be left at Albuquerque. So that was Nathan's for a long time, and that was a big deal.
Yep. And then do you remember the other one up the street called Palm?
No.
Okay. Do your homework.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, teacher.
That was his last one. Yeah. Great. Yeah, he's still around. I think he's one of the guys that kind of hangs out at Pete's in the morning. There's 4 or 5 of them. They hold court and solve the world's problems. Funny, isn't it? Good stuff. You ready to go to Serra High School?
I'm ready to go to Serra High School.
All right, let's go to Serra High School. You did a great job with Burlingame, buddy. Thank you. I know the Historical Society is going to love that stuff. Okay, so, all right. When you were at Serra, who was principal?
When I was at Serra, the principal was Father Ludwig Andre.
Oh, he was, you know what? He was like a chemistry teacher when I was there.
Yes,
yeah, and he got promoted, right. Dean of Men?
Was Jim Monahan.
Oh, so Kelly was gone. Father Kelly was gone.
Yes, I don't think he was there. He was there, but I don't think he was Dean of Men then.
Okay.
I think at least from my year.
Yeah.
So,
you know, Father Kelly, John Kelly, went on, after he left the priesthood, he went on to found Samaritan House.
Yeah. No,
great story.
He's an amazing person, great person.
Story. Yeah.
Because I graduated from Serra in 73, so I imagine being Dean of Men was tough, and they probably ran through him every few years.
I would imagine so, yeah. But he was firm but fair, I guess is the expression you would use. So notable students, you remember,
Well, when I was a freshman, my oldest brother, Scott, was a senior. He wasn't notable. Nice guy, but not notable. But that's when Lynn Swan was there.
Okay.
And Lynn Swan played football, basketball, track. He could do anything.
Yeah.
He was and is a nice guy. Athletically so talented.
Yeah.
So he was there.
Jesse Freitas must have been there.
He had just graduated.
Oh, he had. Okay.
So, in fact, the year before, I wasn't there, and Jesse Freitas was the quarterback. Lynn Swan was the receiver, and then Jesse Freitas graduated. Lynn Swan became a senior, and Jesse Freitas Sr., who was a football coach, then converted Lynn Swan to quarterback because Lynn was so talented.
Yeah. Okay. Did you have Denny Colonico? Where was he in this picture?
So Denny Colonico, we knew the Colonicos really well, lived over on Pepper in Burlingame, and he is older than my oldest brother by a year or two.
So would he be in his 70s then?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
because I'm 68. My oldest brother's got to be 72, and I bet Denny's a year or two above that.
And
I still see him. He goes to Mass at St. Catharines.
Yeah. Seamus Murray?
Seamus
didn't go to
lives,
Serra, but
he didn't go to Serra. He went to St. Catharines. He went to Burlingame High School.
Yeah.
And Seamus lives in the area, married to Roxanne. They live over in Burlingame and Occidental.
Yeah.
Yes, so I see Seamus from time to time.
Where was he in your, the lineup at St. Catharines?
He was in my class at St. Catharines.
He was?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. All right, so while you were at Serra, were you happy at Serra, Mark?
Loved it. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was a great sense of camaraderie, community. You have to apply yourself, be involved. I got involved in doing statistics for sports teams. My older brother, Steve, had done that for a long time, and I kind of followed it, so it was a way of getting involved. Believe me, I have no athletic ability at all.
I get it, yeah.
And so,
but you found something you liked.
But I found something, and it was fun, and you get involved. So it was very enjoyable.
Were there any regrets of not going to Burlingame High?
Well, I never would have gone to Burlingame High anyway, because I was technically in San Mateo and San Mateo Park, so I would have probably gone to San Mateo High School. So it really wasn't an option. Our parents just said, all right, the boys go to Serra High School. My sisters went to Mercy and Burlingame, just kind of following that route because, St. Catharines, and that's how you wound up. 5
children, all in Catholic schools.
Yes.
Did your dad hit the lottery before there was a lottery, or what's the deal here?
No, they just made it work. They're good people, just simple, and you just made it work, and you sacrificed a lot.
That is great. Boy. Do you go to what year did you graduate from Serra?
73.
Okay. Do you go to any reunions?
I went a number of years ago. We just had our 50th, but I was out of town for it, and I think they had a good turnout at school, but I haven't been for a while. But I'll still see some classmates from time to time.
Yeah.
I just saw Skip Gould, Joe Heinen at another event. So I'll see, and Steve Dolman. So I'll see people from time to time.
Great, good, okay. Let's see. So after Serra, you went to College of San Mateo for a couple of years.
Yes.
Graduated from college CSM.
CSM with a AA degree in 1975.
Yeah, and then so you transferred up to and graduated from the University of San Francisco, USF.
Jesuit-run school.
Great stuff. Yeah,
great school.
I know that. Yeah, believe me. A couple of people in my family are very close to USF. What year did you graduate from USF?
1977.
Was it a degree in accounting?
Degree in accounting.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a BS with an accounting specialist degree. Since high school, I wanted to become a CPA.
Yeah, so that was the dream.
That was the dream, and then once. Then I got a job out at USF for one of back then the Big 8 firms, Pete Mark Mitchell. Great company, great people, but it just wasn't for me. Sometimes you don't know until you actually do it. And I worked for them for about a year, a little less than a year, and I just said, I just don't like it. And, I figured out very quickly in life, if you don't like what you're doing, get the heck out and do something that you want to do because life's too short.
All right, so what lit the fire about real estate, your current
So
profession?
There's no real estate background in our family, and I have no friends, but I learned that I wanted to live and work in the same community. I also wanted a job where if I worked hard and smart and I got lucky, I could make a decent living. And if I didn't work hard and smart and I fall flat in my face, that's okay too. That's telling me something. And so I still don't know what the trigger was for real estate, but that's how I got into it. And I got into real estate in August of 1978.
How old would you have been?
I was... So I was born in 55, so if we add the numbers, I would be 23.
Wow. Amazing. All right, let's talk a little bit about real estate and very general questions I have for you, very generic general questions, okay? I'm going to start out with... well, first of all, how long have you been in business now? So
I've been in real estate since August of 78. I work for a company called Sachs Realty, S-A-X-E. They're a local Bay Area company. And then I joined Coldwell Banker in January of 1980. So I've been in the business since 1978.
Yeah, good for you. Okay. I'm just wondering, and I used to ask this to some of the realtors that come in the store because you guys are all great people, all right? Do you ever watch on TV, on Bravo TV or Netflix, like Selling Sunset or $1 Million Agent or any of those shows?
I watch $1 Million Listing,
Yes.
$1 Million Listing Beverly Hills all the time.
Yeah.
Yes, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I am hooked on Selling Sunset, the Oppenheimer Group, whatever their name is. I love the homes they go to. The real estate girls that do all the selling, it's like, I can't believe it, but they're so catty. Anyway, we're going to move on from that. Okay, here's some questions
Well,
for
from
you.
the TV shows, you don't believe it because they capsulize everything because they cannot show a transaction. If they showed a true step-by-step transaction, people would be falling asleep watching it. They would not be interested.
Right. They make this very interesting for sure. All right, so I'm going to sell my home, and I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to sell this home as is. What does that mean?
So it means really two things. One, contractually, in a contract, you delete certain things in a contract that says the seller's responsible for making sure the plumbing, electrical, roof, windows, everything is working correctly and in good shape. And if there's any termite work, we'll do it. I'm oversimplifying the explanation. But nowadays, and this has been happening for a few decades now, people are selling their house as is, which means that they're not warranting, the seller's not warranting that the plumbing, electrical, roof is in perfect condition and working. Because nowadays what most sellers do is they'll get reports up front in advance to have a termite report and have a property inspection report to talk about the condition of the house so that the owner of the property knows more about the condition of the house before they put it on the market. They can correct things if they want to, or they don't have to. So, and there's no law that says you have to do the reports up front in advance. In fact, when the buyer buys a property, the buyer has every right to do their own inspections if they want. So what as is means really kind of two things. One, contractually, what's in a contract, and then the other part is when people think of an as-is house, they think of, oh my gosh, there's cracks, that needs painting, the pool's half empty. But nowadays, all these homes, they're beautiful homes, but you sell them contractually as is because that way it just takes a seller off the hook for some of these obligations. Seller still has to disclose what they know. Sellers most of the time have reports in advance. There's no law that says they have to. Buyers certainly can do whatever inspections they want, so people find out about the property.
That's interesting. So that sort of takes care of my next question. Who pays for inspection? So if I'm selling my home, I don't have to have it inspected unless I kind of want to know what's wrong, right?
And I would say 99% of the sellers nowadays will pay for a termite inspection, a property inspection. If they have a pool, they have a pool inspection, because it'll make you more aware of your house when you're selling it. And if you want to correct anything, because even if you're selling your house as is, the more things a seller can do to correct an issue, the better price you'll get and the better the buyer will feel about the property when they buy it. Just because it's as is doesn't mean it's a negative thing. It can be a beautiful home, but it's just contractually you're selling it that way.
Okay, and if I don't want to have it inspected, but you're going to buy the house from me, you can have it inspected at your cost. Is that correct?
So even if the seller has their own inspections, the buyer can still, if they want, have their own inspections. But if a seller has no inspections, the buyer certainly should have their own inspections, and the buyer pays for it.
Okay, great. Are there only 2 inspections that are required? You said 3 if there's a pool, but you have a building inspection and a termite inspection. Is there anything else?
So there's no inspections that are required. I would say standard practice is you would have a property inspection. And this is not a city inspector. This is a private person that looks at the furnace, the water heater, the plumbing, the electrical. They can't see between walls, but they look at the roof, they look at everything, and then we also would get a termite inspection that looks for fungus damage, dry rot, things like that. And if you had a pool, you'd probably want to get a pool inspection. Most homes don't have pools, but that's another option.
Yeah. All right. So what the heck is a sewer lateral?
Sewer lateral, in simple terms, is a horizontal pipe that connects the house to the city sewer main in the street. I'm oversimplifying it, but that is a sewer lateral. And what a number of cities have done, and Hillsborough and Burlingame started this a long time ago, is there have been issues where the sewer lateral pipe, the horizontal pipe that connects the house to the city main, over time can separate via tree roots, can disintegrate, and you can get groundwater, you can get rainwater, you can get sprinkler water, irrigation water in it, and that can cause potentially overcapacity problems at sewer treatment plants. And if there's overcapacity at sewer treatment plants and the city has to release sewage into the bay, then they can get big fines for that. So there's a lot of reasons why sewer lateral is becoming a more common term, because a lot more cities on the peninsula are adopting that you have to have your sewer lateral inspected as a result of the sale, and if it needs replacing or repairing, that work needs to be done.
Okay, so that's a requirement by the city then?
Most cities.
So as soon as you put your home up for sale, does that happen then, or does it happen after it's sold?
So usually...
Because they tear up the lawn, right, when they do, if it has to be replaced?
Sometimes they can tear up the lawn. They have new technology now that it's called a trenchless system, where they dig up a hole at one end, they dig a hole at the other end, and they actually have a device that goes through and pulls through the existing pipe. It breaks the old pipe apart, and it pulls a new polyurethane pipe in that area, so you don't have to dig up a whole trench. Now, there are circumstances where you can't use it, but that is a method to make the cost of it lower. But if you have to do, depending on the length of it and depending on the connections that you connect to the city main, if you have to put in a new sewer lateral line, it's going to cost easily at a minimum $6,000-7,000, and it can get up to $9,000, $10,000, $12,000, $15,000.
No kidding. Depending on
how
the length,
long, depending on the length.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Again, going back to if I'm selling my home as is there a need to stage it? Can you just walk in and look? Oh, there's Mark's TV set. There's his lounging chair, whatever. Is there a need to stage?
I think staging is very important to do. It's the seller's choice. There's a cost associated with it, but staging can also include: do you paint the house? Do you refinish the hardwood floors? Do you put in new carpet? And then do you also, bring in rented furniture? So staging encompasses a number of potential steps. So the more things you do to make the home look cleaner, simple, neutral, makes the buyers and the number of buyers, it makes it more appealing to the buyers. So you don't have to, but I think those are smart things to do.
If I do all that, I won't move.
You might not. It was funny when we sold my dad's house, and believe me, the house needed a lot of remodeling, but we did a lot of those staging things. We didn't update the kitchen or bathrooms.
Right.
So when we walked through before we put it on the market, but after it was done, he goes, "Oh my gosh, I want to stay."
Yeah, but stay now,
but
right?
No, Dad, you can't. But yes.
Okay. So sometimes I hear the expression when a home goes on the market, oh, it's been on there for a long time. What's considered too long? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days?
So it depends on the overall market conditions. So if it's a good market typically favors a seller where there's not a lot for sale and a lot of homes sell quickly. So if in a good market, if your home hasn't sold in the first 2 to 3 weeks, believe it or not, that probably means for whatever reason you're overpriced. Now, maybe it's because the house needs too much updating, or there's a strange floor plan, or you're on a busy street, or the lot might be very downslope. I mean, there could be a number of things that make up why it's too high, but generally, after 2 to 3 weeks in a very good seller's market, if it hasn't sold, it probably means it's overpriced. In a slower market, like in the early 90s and the early 80s, where we had high interest rates in the early 80s and early 90s when Silicon Valley fell apart, maybe you'd say after 30 days or so, it might take a little longer. But so around here, because things are so fluid, they move quickly, you get a pretty good idea. Might be other parts of the country where they say, oh, you've only been on for 60 or 90 days. That's normal. But no, around here, things move.
They turn quickly.
They can turn pretty quickly in good markets.
Okay, so let's say it's 30 days or up now. Are you going to meet with the seller and say, hey, maybe we should renegotiate the price? Is
Yes.
that how that works a little bit?
So you would probably be coaching the seller multiple times during the preceding weeks, saying, okay, this other home came on the market, or this other one that was pending now sold, and these are the reactions we're getting from the agents, from the buyers, or from the buyers. And so you're constantly giving data to the seller to say, these are the reactions. And so then after a few weeks, you'll say, okay, seller, no one is stepping up, so all other things being equal, it comes down to price.
And do you sign a contract with the seller when you become their listing agent?
Yes, it's called a listing agreement.
And how long is that good for?
It can be as long as you want. It can be, it's negotiable. It's just like the list price. It's up to the seller.
Yeah.
There's a brokerage fee involved. That's always negotiable. And then, the term of the listing agreement's negotiable. 90 days, 120 days, 150 days, maybe on the listing.
Yeah.
It depends.
Okay. All right. So let's go to something that might be sensitive. I'm not really sure because I don't know that much about it, but I've heard that the commission rate has changed or is going to change, or it's negotiable or something. Is that true?
So the commission rate has always been negotiable. And it's very clear in the listing agreements it's negotiable. I mean, if you were to look at what commissions were going back 20, 30 years ago, 15 years ago, you might develop an average of maybe they're around 6%. But believe me, within that, there's variation high and low. And then lately, I would say they tend to average maybe closer to 5%. But believe me, I've seen things higher, I've seen things lower. So they've always been negotiable, but there's been in the news, big lawsuit. And so the seller would always pay the total commission, the total brokerage fee, of which that commission was split between the agent for the seller and the agent for the buyer.
Okay.
And the way the lawsuit is looking, it hasn't been settled, it hasn't been finalized, but it looks now like the seller will pay a certain commission to the listing agent, and the seller may or may not pay something to the buyer's agent. And then when you're working with a buyer, you now will need to, in the future, have a buyer's agreement. In the past, you didn't need a buyer's agreement. Now you'll need a buyer's agreement where the buyer will say, I'm going to pay you as my agent a certain amount. And for some buyers, they don't have the money, or they might not want to pay you a certain amount of money, so it's now going to create a lot more negotiation.
You say a certain amount, but not a percentage, or is it a set fee or something, or is it a percentage?
It could be either.
Okay.
It could be either.
Yeah, but that hasn't happened. So what I'm feeling is it hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen, or what?
It's going to happen, and most likely it'll happen later this year, but things still haven't been settled.
And who's doing the lawsuit? Who's the one that started the lawsuit? Is it like some guy or some?
I think it started out with an individual, and then maybe it became class action where other people were involved. I'm certainly not an attorney, and I forgot where in the country it started.
So this is countrywide, not just California.
Yeah, because it pulled in the National Association of Realtors and other real estate companies participating in it. So it grew from a smaller lawsuit to a big class action, and it pulled in big national organizations.
Yeah.
And so, yes.
Great. Okay. In interest of time, because we're running out of time, but I have to get to Rotary because I'm staring at your blue blazer with the Rotary pin in it. And you have been an amazing Rotarian, because I've been in Rotary for 25 years, and you've been, I don't know, forever it seems like, over 30.
So I joined Burlingame Rotary in 1980.
So that's
I've been
like
a member
40?
44 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So then I joined, and then Scott Williams, great guy, he joined a year later than me in 1981, and Scott's dad was in Rotary,
Yeah.
and Scott's grandfather was in
Terrific.
Burlingame Rotary.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Who was your sponsor?
Ted Kruchnet.
Boy, that's great. We'll get into that relationship another time.
No, I was very happy.
Terrific.
Ted was very nice to do it, and I was very appreciative of him.
Absolutely. And you were president of the Rotary for a year or so. It's a year term, right?
Yes, a year term. I was president from 1986 to 1987. I was only in the club for 6 years at the time, and they must have really gone down low on the list. I was low on the list. They were desperate.
That's great. Okay.
I was by far, I think, the youngest president.
Was there any challenges of being the president?
Yeah, definitely, because it takes a lot of time. You have to prepare every weekly meeting, and you're scheduling fundraising events for the club.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly you have so many great members who do so many things. They really step up. They really help you out a lot. So it's probably 10 times as more work than you ever think it is.
Yeah.
But the joy, the rewards, the satisfaction that comes from it is limitless. It is the best experience because Rotary, we help out the local community and we help out worldwide. And the things that we do in a very non-political way, it's very satisfying, rewarding. You get to know people in the community. You get to know them better. They get to know you. It's really, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Ray, did we set a record today with this podcast?
1 hour, so.
Okay, not bad then. We got to be out of here shortly. Mark Johnson, you have served this community so well, believe me, not just as what your profession is, but you are a true poster boy for Rotary. And I want to thank you so much for being on this show today. I think I tried doing this about a year ago with you, but you got busy, you had things going on, and it's just an honor to have you here today, so thank you.
Well, you're too kind, and believe me, there's so many people in Rotary that do a lot more, have done a lot more, but as a group, we all do a lot, and so I'm really proud of everyone. And the other thing I've got to say is, to my parents, to your parents, to other friends of ours' parents, however they found their way to Burlingame, to the San Mateo Burlingame area, to the peninsula, and chose to raise us here, to stay here, because there were probably times where I know my dad in his career could have taken him out, and he said, no, I want to stay, and I'm sure many other parents are the same way. How thankful are we, how lucky, how fortunate we are that we were able to grow up here during those times, but grow up here and stay here. It is a beautiful area.
It's a real blessing, isn't it?
It is.
We were so lucky.
Yes,
I'm
so very,
grateful
very
for
lucky.
it every day. So.
Yes.
Mark Johnson, thank you.
Mark, you're the best. Mark Lucchese is the best person, and I call myself Mark II, and he's Mark I. He's Mark the Great.
Oh, you're MJ, buddy. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
I'd like to thank my good friend and fellow Rotarian, Mark Johnson, for being my guest today on Burlingame. It's a small town podcast sponsored by the Burlingame Historical Society. Thanks to Kathy and Shelby Lucchese for editing and producing, the great Ray Tyler for video, original music by Bray. You can hear more of Bray at braymusic.com. This podcast was recorded on Tuesday, April 30th, 2024 at the Burlingame Public Library. The Burlingame Historical Society copyrights this recording, and no part can be copied or replayed without the permission of the Burlingame Historical Society. So until next time, everyone, see you around Burlingame. It's a small town.